Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Intrican, coming to you this Thursday, May 1st. It's the second time we're going to try this podcast tonight, and we're going to show just how much RIFC dominated in the first round of the Jägermeister Cup against Westchester SC, soundly defeating them 4-1 last weekend. We're going to talk about the significance of that result and then get you ready as Coach Khano prepares for the historic home opener here at Centreville Bank Stadium this weekend against San Antonio FC. Jason, I'm not even going to talk about the joke that we said about 100 men in a gorilla. We're just going to get right into this. But how are you doing?
Doing great.
I've learned a lot of important lessons tonight. Hopefully the fans can hear you. And you know what? If they can't hear you, at this point, I'll just run a solo person show. But this is not how we want to showcase the thousands of new fans who are going to discover us this weekend as they, descend on Centreville Bank Stadium this weekend. I'm excited. There's so much to go about, but are you good over there? Are you ready for a round 2 electric boogaloo here?
Yeah, let's give it another go.
We'll put that. We recorded that first 15 minutes. That'll go in the vault for a later. There are witnesses, unfortunately. There are records that have been kept.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I got to scrub that from YouTube at a later point. Let's get into this though. Start right away with the good news. We'll get to the bad news. I know everyone still wants it, even though they've been made to wait. But let's get into this Rio Hope gun news. We had seen earlier this week when we went to the open media food day where we got a taste of Centreville food. We put a video out a little earlier today with producer Torin on what that experience was like. But you between stuffing your mouth with lobster rolls and Maven's what was it? It was pastrami. It was the Maven's pastrami. You were watching the game. You were watching the tactics. You were seeing how Coach Khano was lining up for the week, and we saw Rio Hope Gund out on the practice pitch. It was interesting because he was past his 25-day contract. We weren't sure from a league rule perspective, like was he just moonlighting and still kind of having fun and practicing with the team, or was the club violating anything? So we didn't want to report on it right away. But now here we go. We find out, with the game in hand coming this weekend, that Rio Hope Gun very much a part of this Rhode Island FC squad for the remainder of the 2025 season. Overall, how do you feel about Rio joining the team? I know it was a necessary depth piece, but I think it's beyond that. I think he really deserved his role here with the Amber and Blue.
Yeah, before the news dropped a little earlier this afternoon, I had wrote in my notes that, I was hopeful that we would get to see him back with the squad. While he wasn't, lighting up any scoreboards or anything, he was, solid, comfortable on the ball, did what he needed to do. And with all the kind of injuries that we've got going on with the chop and change, moving midfielders back there, I was looking at this as we really should sign this guy. So I was glad to see that we got that taken care of.
I look at Rio Hope Gun's profile, and he's one of those few defenders that it kind of puts defense first. I think in how Coach has looked at his defenders, he wants a versatile player that can move up and down the pitch, solid on the defense, but also contributing to the attack, whether that's in set pieces, corners, or just, putting height and bodies on the ball where need be. I think of Morris Duggan. We think, Frank was the third highest goal scorer for Rhode Island FC, or fourth maybe, and he was a center back for us. So definitely this kind of leans more to me in the camp of Krifa Yao, defender first, and he's really demonstrated to me a consistency of where he needs the position on the ball and off the ball. So I think it's a tremendous signing. I think it's fantastic to see him now with this squad, and I think it's going to answer a lot of the problems that we've had on that right side where, we didn't have an answer for Steven Turnbull, and I think now there's some new options coming out of this, especially when we get to full strength. And we're going to talk about some of the challenges ahead that exist for this team when it comes to injuries. With the good, I know that, the sickos that are in the channel here, they already know this, but I want to go over this for the casuals. We got to talk about the bad here. And Hartford dropped a bombshell last week.
Ooh.
We got a couple of hits about it before the news dropped, and I was thinking and assuming what a lot of people would have if they had been given this, like, hey, watch Hartford today, that Brendan Burke was going to be, let go from the club. He has not started the season well. Other championship clubs in a better position have already tried to rotate through their coaches. We've now seen Mark Briggs at Birmingham Legion. I think this is going to be their kind of pivotal moment where they either step into what we all think that they become, or will they fall by the wayside. So I was expecting Brendan Burke in the hot seat to be let go. And instead, the unimaginable happens. We find Jack Panayiotou now loaned. This is a cursed image on the screen. Jack Panayiotou loaned for the remainder of the 2025 season to Hartford. He goes on in the first round of the Jägermeister Cup, scoring 2 goals, getting 2 yellow cards. I mean, he did it all. But are we? He's the first player to go from RIFC, not directly, but to Hartford Athletic. Are we living in the darkest timeline here?
Yeah, pretty gross. Got himself the old Bellatelli special, 2 goals, and then got himself sent it off. I don't know, but in all seriousness, I hope that he does well. I just don't want Hartford to do well. If that makes any sense. I have no ill will against him. I think he is a bit of an exciting player. Feels like he has a good upside there. So I hope he gets out of this what he needs to maybe take himself to that next level. Like you'd mentioned Brendan Burke there, it kind of feels like this is maybe a last straw for him. Here is a talented attacking player. If you can't get something changed here within the next few weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he's on his way out.
A lot of fans were asking why we didn't get a look at him again, despite the fact we've already technically loaned him out twice. I did ask around the pitch that day because the news had broke kind of while the open practice was going on. And it just didn't seem like there was interest. It didn't seem like where the club was going, especially with the recent addition of Maxi Rodriguez, that the player profile of Jack was something that Rhode Island FC was going to be able to utilize. I think if Jack had come back, it would have been very much the same role where he was struggling for minutes, especially on that second stint after Zach Harivo had kind of knocked him and Connor McGlynn out of any real opportunities to get into the starting 11. So you're right. I think it's great for Jack. I was anticipating seeing him in the Open Cup next week with the Revs, but here we are now where we'll see him at least 2 additional times. We don't know what will happen into playoff contention, but I think it's really good. And I was really impressed with the fan base too. There were some people saying, oh, I even asked the question to kind of stir the pot. So do we give him the Detroit City Maxi Rodriguez experience? And everyone's like, no, he's not in control of his destiny. He goes where the Revs say he has to go. And I think you're spot on. I think being able to be successful no matter what team and the competition, as long as he's not good against us on those games, I don't care what he does for the rest of the season. And as long as Hartford is below us in any table standing, it's perfectly fine. Besides this news, did you see Hartford also announced today a USL women's team?
I did see that. They beat us to it, but
did they though?
They did, but so it's not at the same level though.
Right.
Is the thing is
what
I would say.
We don't know for sure, but the rumor has been that Brett Johnson does intend to announce at some point. And I had something fly across my desk, so to speak, a couple of months ago where they wanted to announce it in tandem with the home opener so that people could get excited for the women's game. I don't know if that's still a thing. I don't know that there's time even with everything going on this weekend at Centreville Bank. But yeah, he's supposed to be announcing the USL Super Team. So much like when Hartford gets relegated or stays in the championship and we move on to Division 1, these just seem to be two cities, 2 teams that may never cross paths except for in special circumstances. You ready to talk about the game in Westchester?
Yeah.
All right, so let's get it. First off, just want to give a quick shout out to the gangster, John Morrissey. It was really fun seeing him. We had coordinated with him ahead of the game to make sure that we got to hang out. We did promise him hot wieners and coffee milk, but that fell through. There were a couple of loyal fans who had reached out and said, hey, we know that Oneyville won't be open, but we can find a way to find you, 7 a.m. hot wieners. And I was kind of thinking to myself, is a hot wiener at 7 a.m. the kind of respectable place that you want to be giving that as a first timer to someone who's never had the true hot wiener experience? My gut said no, and when my gut eats hot wieners all the time, you got to trust that gut.
I've never tested the half-life of a hot wiener, but I imagine it can't be that great. I couldn't be wrong. It's very much a I'm buying this to eat now kind of food, as opposed to I'm going to travel 3 hours with this, hopefully in some sort of insulated bag to keep it warm. And
hey, if DoorDash can get someone food in Westerly and it's still lukewarm, anything is possible. A hot wiener doesn't need to be hot, believe it or not. It can be room temperature, and I think it would still be okay. Let's talk about the experience. I mean, it was really great to connect with John Morrissey. We spent the first half just talking soccer, talking shop around the league and stuff. Heard some interesting insights that I can't wait to see come true, or hopefully not come true. Not all news is always good coming out of Mr. Morrissey, but we gave him a scarf, we gave him some stickers. He had a Westchester SC shirt on for the USL show this week. I felt like we were betrayed immediately. Luckily, Kaylor was in the room with the right kit on. He had the RIFC home kit on. Perfect. So, but let's talk about the overall away experience. That was my first one of the season. That was your second. How did that compare and stack up against the Hearts of Pine journey?
different in a sense. It was they have an interesting stadium. It is right across from parking lot shopping centers kind of deal. So we were told to park in a parking structure across the street. So a bunch of us all met up, parked all of our cars together right near the Beyond section of Bed Bath and Beyond, because the Bed Bath part doesn't exist anymore.
I think someone said the Beyond stands for Beyond Operations because they're beyond bankruptcy at this point. So yeah, they were definitely in their Beyond section. But it was a lot of fun. It was
that was a lot of fun to kind of meet up with everyone. The amount of people that traveled to this one a little bit better than what we saw up in Portland, Maine, but also understandable because that was a Tuesday match. This is Sunday, middle of the day. Nice, good, easy, get up there, be able to get back, same day kind of travel thing there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun meeting up with all the fans going in together, being the loudest section again. You know, I went back and rewatched a lot of the game, and numerous times on the broadcast they were mentioning, you know, the away travel, and it got brought up constantly.
I think Irvin, the president of Defiant 1636, had a time mark for each time the away fans were mentioned. I think it was at like 10 to 12 times. So definitely kudos, well earned. I mean, Rhode Island FC quickly becoming the team that's known for its traveling support. Khano said in a recent conversation with the Bally's interest group for that thing we reported, if you wanted to go to that special lunch, how important the traveling fans are, what an impact it is to it. I'll share an anecdote about the away. So I was talking after the game with Noah Fuson, and you know, we were just asking like, how does he feel that this team steps up? You know, they're in their inaugural, you know, kind of expansion. What is it like since you just went through it? And he said, you know, he said nice things. He was like, it's a good start, but they have a lot of work to do. And then he said, I was really excited at first because I heard drums, and I said, oh wow, Westchester, they're starting things off right. They know what's going on. And then he heard the chant to the drums. He's like, wait, those are our guys, and they're that loud. Like before they even saw any of the fans in the locker room, they knew just exactly how much thunder the Defiant 1636 and La Banda 401 were bringing to the party. I heard a lot of jokes and snide comments thrown towards Westchester's fan group. Like they said, like, look how many they have. It's so small. I will say this: remember your roots. Stay humble, because if it wasn't for Irvin back in 2019 and a handful of other people kind of building that fan base up, the organic part of it, right? Like Kevin was an early part of it. I think of Joe. If they weren't there just getting people interested in having conversations, this wouldn't be what it is today. Westchester was a thought 10 months ago, right? Like they weren't even a thing yet. So do they have an uphill battle because they're starting and still trying to grow? Absolutely. But like, let's also respect, you know, someone asked me like, why are you even excited for Westchester? It's like, I want to see everyone grow. I want to dismantle them for the 90 minutes on the pitch, but I want the community overall to grow. So I thought it was a good time. It was a great experience. I do know now, though, in the future, I won't pay the money for the tickets. I'll just hang out at that Target parking garage, like the 5 real sickos that were like, we're not going to pay for this. We're just gonna watch from our parked car, and hey, that works too. You know, there's not a bad ticket at Memorial Stadium in Mount Vernon, New York.
You know what you do there is you have like a cheapo ticket where you sell access to like a feed for $5. So it's like a drive-in experience where then you get the listen in on it or something.
Yeah, you bring a smart speaker and you listen to Tom Quinlan and Nick do the play-by-play on 790. So it's a complete match at that point. Let's get into the game itself here and talk through the Jägermeister Cup standings. So now with this first round, pretty important here. You know, Rhode Island FC does go on to defeat Westchester 4-1 in the first round. The goals were scored by Frank Nodarce, Maxi Rodriguez, and a brace from JJ Williams. The 4 tallied goals do put Rhode Island FC not only in first place in Group 4 after the first round, but it also puts them in the lead across the entirety of the Jägermeister Cup. You know, as a reminder, these are the group stages, right? So there's going to be those 4 individual competitions. Only one winner from each of these groups will advance automatically into the next stage of knockout play. There will be 2 wild cards that continue on, and that's from all of the different groups. So it's not a wild card per each group. It's not a wild card from like maybe one half of the division versus the other. It's just the 2 best goal differentials or points. So obviously that, you know, if you have the most points, that's going to come down to how you advance. But the way the amount of games there are, the way that the results work with the penalty system, most likely it's going to come down to who just scored more goals. having 4 to start puts Rhode Island FC in a very strong position in this opening round, that if they don't somehow advance on the Group 4 outright, it gives them a solid contention for one of those wild card spots. Those wild cards currently occupied by Hartford Athletic and Birmingham Legion. So huge moment for Rhode Island FC. It's a really good start. And I think it kind of reinforces what Coach Khano committed to, saying, I'm going to take every single one of these tournaments, every single one of these competitions as serious as I can. We're already seeing it in the Open Cup performances. We're now seeing it in the Jägermeister. And, we know that there's a long season ahead for the regular performances. So I think he's delivered so far on what he's committed to.
Yeah. And just to talk about the tournament itself there, I was thinking about it. I kind of like this move from the league to push towards goals, in a sense of, this is just kind of a fun side tournament to the actual league itself. Why not reward attacking soccer in that regards, where goal difference and goal scored are actual important tiebreakers? So, leave the serious stuff for the league.
I'll take it any single time. I guess the only question I'd ask you as a foil here is, do you see any kind of commanding difference between the regular season and the kind of knockout cup competition parts? Because there seems to be some really big separations of performance here.
Yeah, a little bit. We've seen some flashes of brilliance from this team, right? When it comes to the league. I mean, sorry, not the league. When it comes to the cup competitions, right? 6 goals between their first few matches, as opposed to when we go back and look at the actual league play itself, were 5 goals across 5 games. Because it's funny, I was taking a look at our total wins, losses, and draws, and it's not that bad. I think it's 3 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Could be better. But the reality is, a lot of that has come from our cup competitions. And we're not in a terrible spot, but we're not in a great spot right now when it comes to the actual league. It's kind of a similar position that we found ourselves in last year.
It's almost the exact.
Yeah, 7 goals in the first 7 games compared to last season. But it felt like there'd be a little bit more improvement this year with all the injuries, some of the chop and change, maybe some lost players that we didn't count on losing. It feels a little different this year.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the 3-0 blowout, then we get blown out 2-0. I think back to last season, you had the 4-1 loss to Tampa, you had the 3-1 loss at home to Phoenix. So we definitely seemed like, and that's why when people start panicking so early in the season, there's so much game left in this total season. And when you look at how many players haven't even had a chance yet to demonstrate, I'm very much in the wait and see. But it is ironic that we're kind of falling back into the same, I don't want to call it pitfall, but the same kind of traps.
We're regressing back to the mean.
a little bit. So let's talk about how that worked out for the team this week, or last week, I should say, against Westchester, kind of starting here with the starting 11. Jackson Lee, very excited to see him get the role. I was concerned, Coach didn't really allude that he would rotate players as other coaches have, as he's demonstrated and said in previous Open Cup performances. We heard Caleb Porter today talk about how he'll prep for the Revs versus Rhode Island FC game later next week.
Yeah, I think he said he's going to play the U12s.
I mean, anything's possible with Caleb Porter. But then, so it's good to see him. And then, we knew with Frank Nodarse, Karifa Yao, a late scratch, Grant Stoneman stepping in for Karifa Yao, and then Rio Hope Gunn getting the start on that right back side. I really think that this game helped kind of push Khano over the edge on making sure he penned that contract for the permanent extension. In the midfield 5, we had Aldair Sanchez out on the left. The opposite foil to that on the right side, again, Jojea Quizera. I'm starting to like it, man. I'm starting to like Jojea on the right just as much as we liked him on the left. And then we finally saw the double pivot of Zach Haribo with Clay Holstead in that middle with sizable minutes where we didn't have to deal with a man down. Maxi Rodriguez finally gets to play that unlocked cam role, that true number 10 spot that we wanted to see. And then you had the front striker pair of Noah Fuson and JJ Williams. Honestly, minus Karifa Yao, this felt like very much a potential continuation of starting 11 that we could see game after game. Really liked what I saw here. The bench had the depth. We'll talk about some of the historic milestones that happened for some of the players here in the squad here in a second, but overall thoughts on this roster?
Yeah, it was interesting to see the kind of, 4-back line to a certain extent during defensive play be used again. We saw it last last game with Detroit. And at that time, it felt like necessity, right? We're down a man. Let's just set up in 2 banks of 4, put a striker in front of them, and just try and ride this game out. But the reality is, RIFC started to dominate that second half. And so I don't know if it kind of, sparked something in Khano's mind for him to decide to maybe try it again. And he did in this case. I mean, it's difficult to talk about the formation of this team because they are so fluid. Because often at times they still will look like a 3-5-2, but it's about how they drop back and defend and move through transitional stages of the game. They can be very flexible. There's lots of players in this team who are comfortable in multiple positions, but it was kind of not very often last year that we would ever see them line up in a back 4. It was always 3 or 5.
Right.
And that 5 would be like
attack, 5 on the drop back.
Yeah. And that was even the 5 was kind of rare. So to see him make some adjustments here in the 4, spoiler, it worked out really well. So I'm kind of happy to see this. I'm just curious to see it again against a quote unquote better opponent and a championship quality team, because I think this looks like this might be a solution to a lot of our problems. But I'm a big believer in the scientific method, and we need to have some more trial and error.
And I think too, let's not pretend it wasn't really that 3 back line for a majority of the game, because like you said, they set up in the 4-2-3-1, but when you look at the average positioning index of the players, they were very much shifted to the left side of the pitch, and it allowed Aldair to kind of cover more ground a little bit more far forward. It still very much was a back 3 for a majority, right? Rio Hopegun was still kind of more that right center back than the right back. His positioning, again, kind of what we were talking about earlier, he did not go forward very far. So it was one of those opportunities where we would just see the team kind of cement the back 3 more than anything. But it reminds me of that pulley system, right? Like what we've seen so far this year is we've seen the wing backs engage, and then there's an overlap or a concentration in the midfield. It's their responsibility to kind of carry forward. We don't see the back line drop the other side and then kind of shift and adjust. We've seen instead Koke Vegas come in and supplement and then kind of encroach further forward to maintain that high press, or eventually, like the high block if we need to. I think this time, not maybe underestimating Westchester, but it allowed us to kind of absorb more and have the confidence to go, hey, like we're going to have the numbers back as much as we need to. And I also think that gave Westchester some maybe false belief in themselves to step forward a little extra, a little too more dangerously than they should have, and disrespect how Rhode Island FC would counter, because this is a team that's built for the fast break. I really think that the answer to, though, was Maxi Rodriguez in this cam role. We've seen him so often play the center midfielder role this season. We've praised his defensive abilities. His distribution has been shaky at times, but this game he was just lights out in all of the right ways. And I think it was that tether. It was the ability to unlock. If you look at his heat map, it's like a starburst. He's everywhere but the center of the pitch for his coverage. And he truly was, whether it was, corner kicks, it was the left side defensively, it was the right side offensively. I've never quite seen a player's heat map distribution look as much as it was for Maxi's. And I think he had his most complete game as a result of it. But that only comes from the confidence he gets from Harivo and Holstead being behind him, knowing that like he can take the dangerous advantage. He can take that step forward and do something a little bit more, let's call it risky, because he knows that there's going to be cleanup behind him. I don't know that Rodriguez, either as he's integrated with this team or in the partnerships he's had historically with Okiyoshi and Ibarra, then rotating through Harivo and Okiyoshi, then it was Okiyoshi and Holstead. Like, like there's been so much chop and change in that center pivot that this is the first time where Maxi was given the permission, and I feel like really had the confidence to play his game without being a man down, because there wasn't a Frank Nadarce red card in the 6th minute.
And yeah, when I went back and rewatched the match, I was paying attention to a lot of the positioning from a lot of the players' perspectives and what those kind of transitional formations look like. And I noticed that a lot of our players were being very cognizant of like what spaces they were occupying and marking. On top of that, they were paying attention to where their team members were kind of moving along the pitch, right? A lot of times I would notice Aldair Sanchez, as soon as the transition went from like attack to defense, he was like already back there. So he was, I don't know if coach kind of gave everyone an earful and like really like laid into him. Like, you need to be very, aware of your surroundings, make sure you're getting back, play these specific and like positions. But we saw, a lot less sloppy play here from the team than we've kind of seen earlier on in the season, where they get caught out on transitions. People are in wrong, like, they go too far up. They're going on an adventure trying to, create some sort of attack. And then they get caught out in the back because not enough people were occupying certain parts of the field. They did really well here to make sure they covered their defense well.
Yeah, no, I think this formation really worked, and I think it's going to leave Khano with some internal decisions that he has to make. He's been so religious on the 3-5-2 that I think the 4-2-3-1 with that fourth auxiliary being the defender back instead of the back five, I just think it's opened up some pathways in the midfield that have helped reconnect and reestablish the attack, because when the attack isn't being fed, the numbers drop. We talked about this a couple weeks ago, that it's not necessarily a quality versus quantity game, but this team thrives when they have, north of 15 chances or shots attempted to be successful as a group. Kind of some of the things that highlight, though, for me as a scare, and this is really going to become a problem as we talk about the San Antonio match here in a second. A lot of injuries for this team right now. If you look at who was fielded for the day, including our 25-day contract player at the time in Rio Hope Gunn, we had 2 keepers on the bench for Westchester SC because there was no other Rhode Island FC player available for selection. So we went down with 2 keepers.
Koke is going to play striker then,
which was great to hear Defiant's request, because we were so far up. Like, let Koke be a striker on the game. But it does open up some concerns. Excitingly, though, because of the dominating performance that Rhode Island FC had, not only did Rio Hope Gunn get his first professional start with Rhode Island FC, but Kevin Vang, finally made his first appearance in 2025, replacing Georgia as that second half substitute in the 80th minute. Cole Dewhurst also got his first professional minutes of his career with Rhode Island FC and his career overall. It was a late substitution, but CB number 5
still good to see,
gets to come out onto the pitch. So really good to see them get rewarded by it. I want to talk about the overall performance of this team. They very much continue to be a first half team, Jason. Right now, between the Open Cup, the Jägermeister Cup, and the regular season, Rhode Island FC has scored 10 of its 11 total goals in the first half. In all 3 of the wins that they've had this year, Rhode Island FC has scored multiple goals within 3 minutes of each other, again, all in the first half. This win, also the second time RIFC this season has scored 3 goals in one half the season, going back to how Oakland Roots performed. Obviously, different competitions, different levels of performance against said teams, but we only thrive in this first half. Do you think that long-term this is going to be a problem, or does it not matter as long as we can go out there and set the tone that we want to be in the amber and blue?
In terms of like looking towards the future, you want to be able to make sure you can respond in a second half. Teams will make adjustments and come out stronger. We've seen it numerous times. A lot of the matches against Charleston last year towards the end of the year, I remember the game towards the end of the year and then the playoff game. Obviously, those results ended up favorable for us, but they came out a lot stronger in those second half. So it's working for now. So I'm happy for it. We've got a lot of injuries. Hopefully that will kind of turn around and we can kind of maybe make some adjustments, get a little more confidence to be able to play, let's say, a complete 90 minutes. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. We're going to talk about the performance of each of these goals here in a second, but I want to ask you, XG for this match was 1.94. It was technically the 3rd best XG of all time for the club. I want to ask you, do you know, first and foremost, do you know the best XG rating we've had this year? Do you know what match it was?
So I'm going to guess that it was the Phoenix match, because I feel like I remember feeling like we should have won that match, and it was a bit of poor defending and poor finishing that let us down.
Correct. No, the Phoenix match was the right one. and sadly, the reason we didn't win is because we only had a 20% conversion on our big chances for that game, whereas on this one we had a 75% conversion on the same chances made. So and XG doesn't tell everything, but I think if people go back and they it's been so far removed in the season already, they go, that wasn't a good game. Like we didn't have that many opportunities, but that was the first game where people wanted Chico demoted back to Albert Diqua. There were many goal scoring opportunities that just simply weren't converted. Ironically, that Phoenix game, by the way, as poor of a result it was, considering it's a last place team in the West, that's the third highest XG recorded for the club in its entire history as a professional team. I think you know this, but do you know what the two highest XG recorded games are of all time for Rhode Island?
Goals galore, the original one, because even if those aren't quality chances, if you're scoring 8 goals, the XG
goals galore was a 4.87 XG. But
Okay.
do you know the second one?
I'm probably going to get it wrong. I would maybe guess the was it 5-2 thrashing of Louisville, but that's probably wrong. Or
Louisville, neither one of the Louisville games where we won, I should say, are even in the top 10.
Well, yeah, actually that makes sense, because wasn't one of those long range banger from Clay Holstead, and that's probably like 0.001 XG. It's like only Clay range.
Exactly. No, the second highest of all time is the home leg of El Clamico against Hartford Athletic.
We only put 3 past them.
3.1 XG on the night. So Phoenix Rising now the second, and this game, I think this game brought us to the 7th best. There's a lot of like 1.9-ish XG chances, but let's get into the actual overall of the game score, or the goals scored, excuse me, for this game. We'll kind of go in sequence here. Frank Nadarce just buries this beautiful match where you see Maxi Rodriguez taking the corner. And surprising, because I don't know if Maxi's had much success this season so far with Rhode Island on the corners, but connects Air Frank. He doesn't linger up there. He jumps up and just snipes that ball into the net. It's his second goal of the season. Overall, that's exactly what you want. Like we've needed to see these corners, these set pieces, these crosses start to connect with these big bodies, and that's exactly what happens on this. Any thoughts early on? I mean, it's a great way to start the scoring just here in the 25th minute. Any thoughts on that?
It reminded me of classic Frank from what we saw from him last year. So it's good to see that, even if I'd argue maybe he's been off to a bit of a shaky start this year. The red card didn't help him. He's, maybe the defense as a whole hasn't been doing great, but he was definitely found himself on the wrong side of some bad, poor decisions that maybe led to some goals and such. But it's great to see him get back to scoring, because he was a threat last year for goals and assists. And this was his second goal of 2025 in all competitions, both which have been scored against USL League One teams. So
just dominating it.
Just loves dunking on the little guys there.
And then just a few minutes later, JJ Williams opens up his scoring. He gets that loose deflection off of a Maxi Rodriguez rifle into an open net. All I can say is this: is we always see JJ being this body in the front. He's that player that he's controlling the ball, he's winning his aerial duels, but we don't really see JJ the poacher, and that's what you need from a number 9 when he's not in the center of the attack. You need that player who's going to step off to the side, drag defenders away, create space, and be available to do the tap in. I kind of look at this as the role of like Chico in a lot of ways, who we're thoroughly missing here at the moment. But like, this is exactly what you want to see. And honestly too, Maxi almost scored this goal. I mean, you look at how he steps through it, he takes the shot. Like, if it's just a little bit further elevated or maybe a little bit further wide, he doesn't even need JJ to do the cleanup on this.
Yeah, I'd mentioned last week, or when we were previewing for Westchester, that their defense just seems to be kind of a step behind. They're kind of reacting to everything, in the sense of they're not, predicting where the ball's going to be, trying to close down gaps and spaces like that. So they just didn't, they gave Harivo too much time on the ball here. He threaded it to Maxi, like you said. And then no one was going there for the cleanup. Williams went there, cleaned it off, and by then it was too late for any of the Westchester defenders to kind of do anything about it. It felt like he when you watch that goal, it feels like he takes a million years to score it, and there's still no one around him.
When he was like, have you seen that? I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but there's that player. It's like in like a South Korean amateur league, and he's one-on-one. He's beaten his last defender, and he keeps winding up his leg to go far post, and so the keeper keeps trying to like get ready for the farther dive and leaves the near post open, and he just lets the ball roll and he never touches it again, and the keeper just falls over. It feels like it's a coordinated, like orchestrated joke, but JJ took so much time. It was one of those things like, man, if you miss this at this point, like there's going to be a lot of angry Labanda fans and Defiance members behind you. But he did what he does best, and he buried it away. Maxi Rodriguez finally was like, listen, I need to get on this scoreboard myself here. Goes and does what Maxi Rodriguez, I guess, can now do best in the 37th minute. He gets the cross from Fuson, drills it into the bottom corner. The team's now up 3 goals in that first half. Overall thoughts on the Rodriguez goal?
Yeah, you love to see it. He got his first goal and first assist. We've talked about, previously how he's had good stats, but he hasn't really had the goal and assist numbers there to kind of, get that feather in the cap, so to say. There's only so much you can do in terms of passing accuracy and tackles and all that kind of thing. But to become like that elite type of player, you have to add the goals and assists to your name. So I think this will hopefully, to a certain extent, open the floodgates for him. I'm not necessarily expecting double digits in terms of the return. Combined, yes, but not, we're not looking 10 goals, 10 assists. I mean, it depends how the season goes.
He's capable of it.
I think he's capable of it, but I don't know if that's necessarily where his game is going to be. It's going to be feeding these other players like Williams, Chico, Noah, and Quizera, and anyone else who can kind of find themselves in and around the box. And then we also know that he's capable of like, all right, you guys need to get done. I got this. And he can just take care of it.
Would you rather see 100? Would you rather, I'm back to the gorilla thing.
Yes.
Would you rather see 100 Maxi Rodriguez's or 1 goal? Would you rather see 10 goals or 10 assists from the playmaker?
I'd rather see 10 assists.
Okay, perfect. And then and also credit to Noah Fuson. He finally gets on the contribution. The golden playmaker, a little bit of a lagger this season. He finally gets on the board with his first.
Surprising for how long he trains there by himself afterwards, in training sessions.
So if you guys go back and watch the interview I did with Rio Hope Gund last week, if you watch the interview, it was with Jackson Lee. Jackson Lee was the last player besides Noah Fuson, and Noah's just behind him doing laps in the entire clip. Go back and watch it, and you just keep seeing him run back and forth. When we were at the practice session, he was the last player on the pitch, taking practice shots with one of the assistant coaches.
I think it was it Marco Sugarte?
No, it was Dave. I think it was Dave McKay.
Okay,
that doesn't matter. But anyways,
it was far away and I'm blind.
He's always the last man off of that pitch, practicing. So it's good to see him on there. And then to kind of round things out here, final goal of the game. JJ Williams in the 65th completes the brace with the low finish to the far post. I thought this was offsides at first, and when I kept watching it, I wasn't quite sure if the final Westchester defender was holding him on, but the flag never came up, and they gave the goal, whether it was unearned or most deserved. It does not matter. JJ Williams played through it and did what JJ Williams does best.
Yeah, and his brace was actually his first multi-goal performance of the season, but the fourth of his career overall. And his second goal marked the first time RIFC has scored a goal in the second half in 2025.
I think that's the big story, right? Because you look at how we're always this first half team. It's wild to think that the 11th goal of the season comes off of a Westchester Jägermeister Cup round in our 7th game on the road so far this year. Like that, I'm not saying that's a warning sign, but it's really crazy to see that stat line.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Williams now, by the way, talking about how much of a contributor and how much of an important player that he now is, besides being on the team of the week, along with Frank Nodarce, Maxi Rodriguez, and the ever-loved JJ Williams. JJ Williams now scoring a goal every 3 games in Rhode Island FC's with his time with Rhode Island FC. And the weird stat, the really scary stat, the club's never lost in the 12 games where he has put a goal into the net. We've either won 10 or we tied 2 of them along the way.
That's impressive. You hear that, Trip? Stop being so hard on your dad.
Trip, if only Trip listened to the podcast. Trip always demands that JJ Williams scores 4 goals. We found that out.
Not only that, every single goal for RFC.
Yeah. So when you talk about the level of importance that a player can have, obviously that's not a good stat, because that means when JJ Williams is off or having a bad day, then the team can potentially suffer. But also you can't deny and hate the man for what he does while he is on the pitch. Another thing real fast, I know we talked about it, but Haribo getting his first assist of the season. It's his 4th of his career. Again, this is a guy we thought that was going to be strictly a CDM, a CB backup, never really going to do much on the offensive side of things, and continues to shine and show how lethal he can be. He literally helped connect that front line. He would have gotten a lot of the second assist. He would have gotten the assist, like you said, on the Rodriguez goal if Rodriguez had converted it. I think that he had a very good day on it as well. A lot of people wanted JJ Williams to kind of be the man of the match, and that's fair because of the brace and the work he did. But I think, like, when you look at really who did the work, the lion's share of it, I think that has to go to Maxi Rodriguez or Zach Haribo. Zach Haribo, though, probably not a man of the match because of what happened in the final part of that, and we got to kind of move into that. You look at how Westchester SC gets the goal back. I don't know how you feel about that. It wasn't exactly a great thing. Boliano scores in the 85th minute after Guzan recovers the ball, does that fancy spin and side-on move, finds the through ball, but Haribo intercepts it. This is after he's dropped back to that left center back role when Frank came off, for Amos Shapiro-Thompson. But Haribo can't clear the ball. He doesn't. I don't know if it was a bad touch.
A poor touch, yeah.
Is it a bad? Okay, so bad touch. Can't put his foot back on it. Boliano picks it back up at full speed. And Lee, not even Lee can save that. Like, there's just like, if it's on target at that speed, at that pace, and that close, there's not much you can do there. I will say this, I talked to Khano after the game, immediately after, out on the pitch, and just asked him a couple questions. First thing he said was disappointed that we conceded a goal, because in his mind, like, that was what kind of left this as an incomplete game, right? This could have been the perfect game for the team. And he went on to say that, Westchester SC was playing with a chip on their shoulder, right? These lower league teams, much like when we'll be facing the Revs next week, they play a little bit harder. He said in his words, sometimes these teams will play an extra 10% harder because they know how important it is to get the cup set, how important it is to try to rise to the occasion and prove to themselves that they are worthy of playing against players of that level.
On top of that, these matches tend to have maybe more eyes on them in the extent that you're getting your kind of CV out there to more people to say, like, no, look at me, I am a good player.
Yeah, I mean, that's really where we're at. And so I kind of want to wind things down here talking about this Westchester game. Ask you, this is it. The 7-game road leg is over. We're now here at home at Centreville Bank Stadium starting this week. What does it mean for being at the end of the road?
Yeah, like, would you have believed me if I told you at the end of our road trip that the Miami FC would be ahead of us in the table standings?
I wouldn't believe it at any point in the table standings, let alone after 7 road games.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going on there? Maybe they are a real team. Maybe Sebastian Blanco has got some sort of regen going on. He's turning back the years. I don't know. But after 7 consecutive road games, we're done with our road trip leading up to the Centreville Bank Stadium opening. Like I'd mentioned earlier in the show, 3 wins, 3 losses, 1 draw doesn't sound terrible, but the problem here is there's only 4 points after 5 league game matches. I don't remember what our exact predictions were, but I want to say it was somewhere more along the lines of, if we could get to 6, that would be good, or like acceptable, as opposed to maybe 10 points is kind of what we are going for. Oh, Kai Kamara.
Do we really think that's Kai Kamara?
That's probably not the real Kai Kamara.
We have it. So for people only listening, apparently Kai Kamara is in the chat saying San Antonio FC is better than the small boring State FC. So Kai, those are fighting words. And what team are you on in the MLS nowadays? What is it, the 29th team?
Did he? I mean, he was up there with goal scoring records,
Kai,
right?
No, I mean,
is he number 1 of all time?
Kai Kamara is one of my favorite.
Oh,
players.
he's a legend,
and he's actually a mentor to Jose Quazera. So Kai, if that is the real Kai Kamara, you would never slander Jose Quazera like that.
Yeah,
so that's why I know that's not.
Don't
you.
trash on your boy like that.
Sorry, I interrupted your road trip thought. Kai Kamara just comes in and just floors you. I'll say this: people will never believe us, but there have been many MLS former players that have reached out to us. That is one of the perks of this job now. They will remain forever unmentioned because we just don't want to bring it up. But there was one player when he reached out to us, you and I were scratching our head like, how do we respond?
Oh yeah, that I remember what you the very
to the grave.
one.
But anyways, inside jokes for a later day. Where were we on this this road performance?
But basically, I was saying here, we made some predictions before this road trip. What kind of points would that look like? You know, now that we're on the other side of it, honestly, I'm not too bothered. You know, I think that this team is moving in the right direction. Obviously, I would like to have some more points, but I am happy with the cup competitions. We've progressed in them. I think there's potential to continue, you know, one next week. We'll see how that continues. Obviously, the Jägermeister Cup is a bit of a progress there. We have to go through that full group stage, but we started off very well there. So could we have done better? Sure. But I'm not happy. I think we're moving in the right direction. I will wait another month or two before I decide to maybe hit any sort of panic button, but I don't think we're ever going to get there.
Yeah, I mean, if the blitz attack still continues to work and we remain a first half team, that's all we need to worry about. If these teams start to catch on and figure out Rhode Island FC and we can't adjust into a second half performance, that's where, for me right now, that's where we stand. So let's get into the head-to-head and the lineups here for San Antonio FC this weekend. RIFC and San Antonio have only squared off the single time, and that was last season as RIFC traveled away to Toyota Field, grabbing a 3-1 victory with the fastest goal scored in club history. Thank you, Chico, scoring in the first minute after an assist from Noah Fuson. They did that little fusion dance, as I like to say. You know, we also saw goals scored by Clay Holstead as well as Joe Brito in that match. But unfortunately, that match also led to one of the biggest controversies of the season, a red card issued to Noah Fuson after a dust-up with Louis Solniak. We went back and reported that was not a red in any single shape or way. Coach Khano had tried to fight the disciplinary committee on that. It didn't happen for us, and we were out Noah Fuson for the next game. You know, weirdly enough, though, and it's because the red card came so late, that was the only time in club history where we have still won a match despite being a man down. It was also a time period where we were in a 6-game win streak that helped us kind of propel ourselves to get set up for our deep cup run. I don't have much else to take away from this. I think Juan Agudelo was the only one that scored against us. Of course, a New Englander is going to score against the New England team. But other than that, like, the game was chippy. The game, they still played well. And I think San Antonio was kind of left on the outside looking in because they did not come in and advance to the playoffs as a result of that. And, you know, this is one of those games that definitely didn't help them along their way.
Yeah, and they didn't particularly have a great season last year, right? It's been a few years removed now since they've won the cup. But when we fast forward now to this season, kind of seems like fortunes have maybe changed for them. They started off a bit stronger here with a 5-0-2 record. They are currently tied at the top of the table with 15 points after 7 matches. They scored 13 goals, already placing them in first in terms of goals scored, and only allowed 9 against. They've been playing a lot of tight games, with the exception of the Pittsburgh match. Even the matches they're losing are only being decided by 1 goal. In contrast, when we look at RIFC, like we had just mentioned here earlier, 1-1-3 record with just 4 points. Not where a lot of the fan base and ourselves, I think, thought we were going to be. But, you know, I don't think that it's kind of in line where the club was last year. But I think we have an idea of where this club can go. It was different last year because we had no idea what the team was capable of. We knew there was talent on the pitch, and we were hopeful that something would get turned around. We at least knew we were a stubborn team, hard to play against. But I don't know if we thought that we were as explosive in terms of offenses as we've seen that this team can be. So RFC is only scoring 1 goal on average per game right now with a 20% win rate, or just 0.8 points per game. Kind of low, but I think there's plenty of the time in the season here to turn this around. And what better way than to start it off with a home match at a brand new Centreville Bank Stadium.
But wait, there's more. Both of these teams now have seen early success in the first round of the Jägermeister Cup, with SAFC besting their first round, and then, of course, Rhode Island getting the win early this week. Unfortunately for San Antonio, they do not have an Open Cup round coming up next week. So there's no midweek game for them. There's no planning or prep for rotation after they got knocked out against the Union Omaha. Looking at this team from last year to now, it's been a complete overhaul, right? You've got a new head coach in Carlos Lamosa, and he inherited a team that was just edged out of the playoffs last season. We kind of talked about that. They saw the departure of 14 players, including that infamous red card generator, Louis Solniak. Lamosa wasted no time in heading into this preseason, going after, first and foremost, I think he really wanted to strengthen the defense. He signed Birmingham legend and hero Alex Crognell, which is now partnered with Mitch Tainter, and it's created a huge problem in that back pairing. They also brought in left back / CDM in Jimmy Madronda, defensive midfielder Almir Soto, and these are both starters most of the time for the team. Juan Carlos Osorio, he was a CDM, converted now to a right back, and Lucio Barron. All these defensive pieces, right, that have been brought on. Lamosa definitely focusing on defense first, despite the fact that he's now leading the league in shots on target, goals scored. It's like some of the attack was already there, and he's upgraded there as well. But it's just a completely different team than the group that had, allowed 49 goals in 2024 and had a negative 13 goal differential. They've completely flipped this project on its side, and full credit to when you bring in a new coach, what that transformation can look like.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, we've talked about RIFC having trouble on the road. San Antonio FC doesn't seem to suffer from travel across the regular season and Jägermeister Cup so far this year. They've had a perfect season, 3 away wins on the road. And they're no stranger to difficult environments here, as an impressive streak included a 2-1 win at Oakland Roots in the Western Conference Club's first ever home game in the historic Oakland Coliseum.
Remember, that was 26,000 people, everyone.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people that are rooting against you to lose in front of the home crowd.
And if I remember correctly, wasn't Oakland's goal a bicycle kick?
It was a bike. Yeah.
That was a bit of a crazy match there. On Saturday, San Antonio will enter a new stadium opening for the second time this season as the visitors, and third time overall if you count the opening of the now defunct RGV Toros HEB Park. RIP.
RIP Toros. Yeah, I mean, listen, this club has a bit of a vendetta, not against anything other than the circumstance that they've been thrust into. They live for it. They revel in the idea that they can go and ruin a good time for a home fan base. And hey, listen, as long as they do it with class and they're not Detroit City, more power to you. You're not going to get away with it here at Centreville Bank Stadium this weekend. But I appreciate the desire, the effort to be like that team, that boogeyman team. I look at how this team is set up, and I look also at Richard Sanchez, who, last season only played 3 games. Definitely some unfortunate circumstance there. And when a player, regardless of its injury, its performance, when they only get so few games, so few showings, Sanchez is a former Hartford Athletic keeper, by the way. I just want to say that. But Lamosa places his faith in him and jettisons the other 2 keepers that he had. That they were kind of scramble keepers. There was a lot of rotation, a lot of injury, I believe, in that position last season. But Kendall McIntosh with Oakland roots, he gets jettisoned out to that team. And then Pablo Cisniega, I think he's the keeper that first went to Indy. And then because Hartford had their problems with their keeper, Indy made a last-minute transaction trade back to Hartford. So Cisniega now with Hartford Athletic. So both of these keepers in rotation go on to USL Championship starts, showing kind of the faith in Sanchez. I will say this about San Antonio, and if we have any listeners along in the chat, feel free to correct us here. But I will say this. I don't think that San Antonio is the team yet. Like they've shown a very early
the San Antonio FC,
in the sense that they've played through mostly mid-level competition so far this season, and trust me, it is important to get those results and secure those fixtures, because those points, they all add up at the end of the season. But like when you look at the competition that they've had to go through to get it, I just don't think that they've actually played against teams at the top of their individual performances or contributions. You look at, the only team that's in the top 4 standing on either side of this is Monterey Bay, and they played them in the season opener. And I'm not sure Monterey Bay is a team yet. I think that they're just riding high. I'm not convinced. We get them the next regular season game after San Antonio, so it'll be an interesting test for us. But I'm not convinced that when a bigger team like New Mexico United, or when if they play Lou City, I'm not sure if they have them in their 4 intra teams that are cut out this year. I don't know yet if they're the team. That being said, they could be, and I could be completely wild and off on this, but I haven't seen it yet to be where I believe that is. And also the problem with that too is when you look at it, they've lost against opponents that they shouldn't be dropping points against, right? Like they lost to Phoenix Rising. Granted, I get it. We drew to Phoenix Rising, but we aren't claiming we're the team yet, right? We're not at the top of the table standings. So I'm not sure if this run that they're on is sustainable. I hope it is. San Antonio deserves a lot of credit for the efforts they've put in, and they deserve to see themselves back in the playoff hunt. I mean, they're the 2022 winners, but I just don't know if that's the thing yet. And so when you see them lose to the Miami FC and Phoenix Rising, so they've lost to both last place teams, because yes, Miami was in last place when they played them. San Antonio helped Miami jump us, if you think about it. I'm not sure if this team is disrespecting teams at the bottom of the table. They're not showing up in those big moments to play when they need to. I don't know what it is, but something needs to be adjusted for San Antonio to be quote unquote the team.
Yeah, it's interesting when teams maybe find themselves and they're not fully there, right? They're in that kind of transition period about finding out who they are. There are times when maybe they kind of disrespect their opponent. And like you brought up, both the Rising and the Miami FC, 2 teams this year who haven't been doing good. And maybe you kind of fall asleep. If you go back, watch some of the tape, San Antonio's kind of struggled to dominate matches and kind of close them out. To their credit, though, they've stayed in the matches. They've all been, like I mentioned, they've all been very close matches, with the exception of that one Pittsburgh match. So
they've clawed back several comeback victories out of the jaws of defeat. This is a team that can show up in the second half, where Rhode Island FC will be battle tested, because that is not something we've had to deal with. Again, one of our best stats, if we're winning at halftime, we don't lose the game. We draw, maybe, but we've never lost the game. San Antonio is the foil to that. They're the counter thesis of our game style, our play, of saying, hey, get 2 on us, but guess what? We're going to get 3 on you before the 90th minute. That is an interesting perspective to see these 2 teams line up against themselves.
Yeah, and it does seem like there's kind of no middle ground with this team. That either win or lose. They started the year 4 wins in a row, then they lost 3 games in a row. Now they've won 2 games in a row. So they're not about that draw kings lifestyle, if you will. Maybe if they sort of figure out how to kind of dominate teams, finish those, score early in the first half and kind of close out the matches, if you will, maybe something RIFC can do pretty well at times. I think they could become a real legitimate challenger for the season. But like you said, I think that maybe they need a little more time to figure themselves out. And we just need to kind of get a little more kind of history with this team this year to really figure out what's going on with them.
Yeah, I think of all the teams that San Antonio is going to face, Rhode Island FC seems the best suited to handle them. RFC is a team that wants the fast break. They want the counter. They're not afraid of doing route 1 and launching the ball to bypass the defense. As San Antonio seems to kind of be at their worst, I've noticed when watching the tape I saw, when they have to immediately react to losing possession. It doesn't matter where on the pitch they lose it. They seem like a half step slower to react, or they just have really unfortunate positioning and get caught out in the wrong places at the worst possible time. I don't think that much of it is the luck. I think that comes down to coach tactics at the end of the day.
Part of that is learning the transitions, where to be, how to react.
Kind of like how you were saying earlier with Aldair Sanchez, knowing now when he doesn't have the ball at his feet, he needs to get the heck back. So I agree with that 100%. Kind of moving on here into the ref report. Can't give it to you because the Pro Referee website has been shut down for 5 days for maintenance. Pro Referee organization, you're a joke on and off the pitch. Won't give you the respect until you can give me the data that I demand. So no idea who's coaching or who's reffing this game. it's probably Joshua Encarnacion. So everyone just brace yourselves. Let's get into the thing that everyone has been waiting to hear, and that is the injury report. This is the biggest injury report I've ever listed in my life, Jason. Right now, Rhode Island FC has 7 injured players and 1 additional player unavailable for this match. Isaac Anking still out with that injury for his ACL. Hugo Bacharach, we learned earlier this week through Kevin Callahan's bathroom conversation that he will be out for an additional month or two, working through a meniscus tear. Talked to Danny Rivera after the game. He will still continue to be out for about another month, maybe 2 months, as he's working through his recovery. Mark Ibarra was at the match, limping heavily on his own power. He will not be available probably within the next 30 days, just looking at that. Karifa Yao, we did talk to Coach Khano last week. He is on a short-term knock/injury. We saw him out on the pitch, but we didn't see him on the pitch. So we didn't even see him in training this week. So no idea what the timeline is on that. JJ Williams, everyone. So this is the big one of the night. Brace yourselves. JJ Williams will not be available for the home opener. It has not been confirmed by the club, but we have heard it through multiple people who've reported it to us, sources that I do trust, that they saw JJ Williams in a boot getting carted off of the pitch. That's the problem with practicing at Centreville Bank Stadium, with so many eyes watching the progress and the development. Like, there's no secrets that can be kept. I tried to get the club to confirm to it, but they wouldn't want to. So we're reporting it here first, to the source and the credit of people that I believe and trust in. They have informed us that JJ Williams is going to be injured. No idea what the timeline is on that, but if he's already in a boot and he couldn't walk on his own power off of the pitch, this could be a very dark timeline, guys. So unfortunately, this is not good news. So change your lineups, change your score predictions, still come to the match tomorrow. But then you still also have Chico with that lower body knock. He's now been out for 2 weeks. He was on a 2 to 4 week timeline. Coach is going to want to be rushing some of these players back, but not in a good way. So this will be a really interesting piece to it. And then, of course, Frank Nodarse on disciplinary suspension for the red card against Detroit City FC. The double whammy, if you will. On San Antonio's side, just looking through their injury report from last week, you have Jake LaCava, who could still potentially be out, Reese Buckmaster, and Alexis Suai, all on their injury report. Don't know if that will continue over, but we didn't have them in the starting 11. They didn't actually project to be in their group. So, I mean, Jason, thoughts on that? I almost lost all the oxygen having to say all of those people that are not available.
Do we have anyone available to play?
I mean,
or are they all injured?
Let's get into it. So there's a massive gap here in the bench right now. As it stands with the injuries as reported, not knowing the condition of some of the players that may be closer to it. We did see Chico practicing with a sleeve compression on his leg. So he was back in practice, but if a player has to, still be wearing things, are they truly 100% ready? It's hard to determine that. But, with what it is, we still can field 11 players. Allegedly right now we have 14 available players for game day selection that are not goalkeepers. So we have our 14 plus our 2 keepers who will most likely be making the bench to dress for the day. Where is Kevin Ordui? We need Kevin Ordui
25-day contract
right now. So I'll let you get into the predictions here, which, at this
guaranteed to be.
This is probably the longest.
Also we don't have that many players available, so can't be too far off. So Koke Vegas in net here. We're looking at a back line here of Aldair Sanchez, Zach Harivo, Grant Stoneman, and Hope Gund, with a midfield here of Taimu Okioshi, Clay Holstad, and what do we got here? Joe Brito, and then Maxi Rodriguez kind of sitting there in front with Noah and Quizera up top.
This is so many people. I've ruined people's nights in the chat here. Yeah, I think this is the best we could do. You could drop Jojea Quizera into the right wing back or right wing and replace Joe Brito, but I think with the lack of a striker through and through, unless you have the confidence that Kevin Vang can step into that space, I think Jojea Quizera is probably more prolific being out there available to do something from a chance creation. That back four right now, Zach Harivo is really going to... We talked about this at length after we heard the news. We quite couldn't understand if it was going to be Clay Holstead in the dropping back into the defensive line or Zach Haribo. We both made our cases. I went with Zach because of the fact that with Rio extending his contract, we are a little bit stronger on the right side. Clay favors the right. Do you want to make an argument that we could see either one of those players be in the back line?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, especially with Zach Haribo's contribution to the attack, he almost had a second assist there with that pass to Maxey. So you kind of want him up there too. It's just it's a conundrum, right? Because I could see either way where you have Clay drop back or Zach, because neither of them is what you want to do. But at this point, someone has to with the, like 4 people we have available to us.
Yeah, no, I mean, it could really go either way. Same thing with Quizera. You could replace him with Brito. Brito could roam in a partnership like a false 9.
Quizera did like to tuck in a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised. And then maybe you push Brito up a little bit further, because Quizera does like to run at the back line. He likes to start a little further back.
Yeah, I mean, you could even see Amos Shapiro-Thompson and Rodriguez drop. Like, I think, unfortunately, what we know to be true now is with J.J. Williams' injury, and the Frank Nadarce suspension, we will not see what worked really good in this last game. So we can't take those lessons and apply them forward. My concern right now, and we talk back about these injuries, is that we've seen Isaac Enking now. He is not wearing any kind of, supportive, piece of gear, whether it's a brace, it's a compression sleeve, it's KT tape. He's out there. He's not in full contact training, but he's out there shooting. He's out there running. I do not want, because of the level and depth of these injuries, I do not want any of these players to come back sooner than we would need them back. But Khano is now facing 7 injuries and a card suspension. And on the game next week, even if Krifa Yao is healthy, he's still not eligible for the Revolution game either. If you're Coach Khano, you don't want to rush things, but there's just not enough players, Jason. We're short. We can't. There's 2 open spots on our bench. Right now, our substitutes will be the 3 players that are available to us to substitute. And no disrespect to Kevin Vang, but he's not exactly going to be like a game changer. He's a place, and he's a position player of a specific need and a specific type. Cole Dewhurst as a CB5, that gives us a little bit of flexibility to move players up and down between the midfield and the back. But this is. I mean, we joked about the darkest time being Jack Panayiotou. The darkest time is now Jack Panayiotou at Hartford, and we have 7 players that can't play.
Yeah,
Morris Dugan requests.
Yeah, I know. Call Morris right now. What's he doing? He's been sitting on the bench for Minnesota. That's what he's been doing. Yeah, I don't know. Do you go out and get loans? Like, is Khano on midnight calls right now with MLS teams and just saying, give me someone through Leagues Cup, and I will play them every game? The only way we could make this any better is a torrential downpour during the entire match. Just have no one available to play and just pour the entire time. Just rain on.
Focus on the here and now. What does Coach Khano do?
I think that with how many injuries have happened, I think big picture, there maybe needs to be some sort of assessment of like, is there a reason all of this happened?
Okay.
And that's big picture.
Wait, hold on.
Now step back away from that.
Let's start on big picture. No, because this is important. I'm glad you went there because I didn't put this in the notes. Every single one of these player injuries has happened at Centreville Bank Stadium that I know of. The only one I can't confirm is Hugo Bacharach, because I never saw him play. He was already limping when they were at the Worldwide Soccer Center. Every other player I've seen on the pitch practicing, and then they didn't make it to a game day roster, and they were scratched. So, like, with the exception of maybe Chico picking up a knock in his last performance, which that could have happened, I'm starting to wonder if this turf is cursed. I'm not even joking. I mean,
we didn't see that many injuries at Bern.
They practiced on grass because the thing was they couldn't use the stadium because it was in competition for the other teams that needed it for practice, whether it was football, lacrosse, the men's soccer for Bern or for Bryant. So they were always practicing on the grass field on the alternate site. And we used to talk about how did that hurt them on game day performance because they weren't even getting the reps, the minutes on the artificial turf that they would be playing on. Like, it was almost like they were an away team to their own stadium at times. because they got so limited amount of minutes on that artificial turf. I'm starting to wonder if this turf is cursed. I don't want to, because like you have to start asking 7 injuries. They all seem to be lower body. And, it's like, okay, is it the turf? Is it the training conditions? Is it the physical trainer? I don't want to blame it on Langston, the new physical trainer. Is it the diet? Is it the weather? Like, is it the travel? Like the elevation is getting into their legs and like, we can go on a very large tangent of conspiracy theories here. The first one always starts with the field, or it's the amount of time that they're on that field, the amount of minutes they're putting on their bodies. This team practices just as hard as they play. I watched, ironically, we watched on Wednesday, I watched JJ do a diving header and just like broke his body on the ground, got back up and continued playing. I'm starting to wonder what the attribute is, because there has to be some sort of common link here. There's no way we go down 7 players all with lower body injuries, Jason. There's no way.
Yeah, no, there has to be some. They have to look into this, figure this out, because we can't continue on the season like that. That being said, what you do here is you have to go with what's available to you. If you have any other options to maybe sign some 25-day, contracts to kind of paper over the cracks until the injuries come back, maybe you have to look into that opportunity, because I think you bring up a good point there. Like, we saw Isaac King training, right? But he's had some injury trouble. Like, absolutely do not bring him back until he is 100% ready. And I would say the same thing with all of the 100 players you just listed who are injured, right? We can't afford to keep breaking these players and actually get through the season and do something meaningful if everyone's broken. So at this point, if we have to write off a few matches because we just have to do the best with what's available to us, maybe sign a few short contracts, try and do what we can do, I think you would have to accept that for the longer term goal of getting a healthy squad.
I don't want to jinx anything. We've got people in the chat. Carlos is asking, what kind of voodoo is this? I just want to remind everyone that this used to be a former whale blubber and oil power site. So we may need to appease some whaler ghosts, some spirit whales. I don't know what it is, but we may need an Olympia on this brand new stadium immediately. So if we need to go and have a burn pit in the middle of the pitch and everyone brings their favorite RIFC memorabilia, like, fine. Like, no, this is not the curse of Mark Doyle or Stephen Turnbull.
No, he's saying we need Mark
Doyle.
Oh,
we need Mark Doyle back. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it in a heartbeat at this point. I'll take Gabby Alves back at this point. I'll take any of the players that we have let go. I will take Prince Sadie back right now.
Connor Bilglenn came over to us at the end of the Westchester game.
What did he say to you? Because I talked to him privately.
I didn't like, not me personally, but like us as the fans.
So I got a chance to talk with him. He was standing next to Clay and Noah, and they were just hanging out, being guys. And he said hi to me. I was like, hey, how are things? He's like, I think Matt. I think you know where I'm at. And I didn't have an answer. I was like, hey, you're killing it in this team though. He's like, yep, I'm definitely killing something. And but then he was like, but the silver lining is he's very close to home. His family is very much nearby. So that was a nice kind of cherry on top for him. But he definitely did not appreciate getting dunked on 4 times by his former team. So he felt that he took it personally, but he was a good spirit.
Hopefully he'll do well for himself and get back in at least the championship or something.
Love to see it. All right, let's get into what we think San Antonio's lineup should look like. So any fans that have been following along from San Antonio, let us know in the comments if we got this right or just stupendously wrong, as we did with RIFC. So we've got San Antonio in a 4-2-3-1. They kind of transition a little bit too. The midfield slides a little bit, but very much a rigid back 4. You've got Richard Sanchez in net, and then left to right, you've got Nelson Blanco, Mitch Tainer, Alex Crognale, and Juan Osorio in that back 4. Your double pivot in the middle right now looks like it'll be Jimmy Mandronda and Almir Soto, and then in that front forward 3, and this is going to be a little bit more interesting. We have it down as Luis Paredes. I think he should get the start. He seems to be kind of encroaching. He's a Colombian acquisition that's come in. He seems to be encroaching into that left winger spot, displacing the Portuguese Diogo Pacheco. But I've seen these players both kind of put on the same amount of minutes, so you could really interchange either one of them on that left wing. Jorge Hernandez will absolutely be in that 10 role, kind of commanding the direction of this team. And then on the right side, we've got Luke Hackinson out on that right wing. And then the newcomer in the striker role, kind of having displaced Juan Agudelo, is Alex Grieve. He's an interesting player to watch. He already has 2 goals this season. He seems like he's on the up and up. It's a good buy for Carlos Lamosa. Um, we've already talked at length about kind of what this team has been so far. They're defensively sound between Crognell and Tainter. They seem to be on all flying attack right now between the different players that they've rotated through this top. Jorge Hernandez has absolutely been a beast, as he was last year. We talked at length. Noah Fuson displaced him at the very last minute of being the golden playmaker, only by 1 assist. But Jorge Hernandez still got the team of the year nod, relegating Fuson to the B squad this year. Very much Hernandez dominating in those stat lines. Is there any players that you kind of wanted to talk about and touch on that we can kind of go through?
I mean, yeah, we could maybe bring up Richard Sanchez here. Normally players we watch because they, are fantastic players, pose a challenge to the team. But, in this regards, goalkeepers can have a big impact on games as well, right? So the 31-year-old goalkeeper from Mexico has struggled this season in his second season in San Antonio, allowing 9 goals in the U.S. Championship so far with 7 saves to his name, having only a 43% save percentage, ranks him in the bottom of the league along with his saves per 90 at only 1 per game. They don't allow a lot of shots on him, this team, but it's like when you get the opportunity, they're maybe going to go in.
Their interceptions are top 5, but their clearances are very, very low. Yeah. Like it's like no one gets past them, but when they do, they don't seem to have an answer for what. Like there's no emergency defense. There's just this immobile brick wall that's been put in like a low block, and then if you get past it, it's like, okay, well, it's Hadrian's Wall situation. We don't know what to do now.
Yeah, and he's very much like a modern goalkeeper in terms of, he's ranking in the top 25% for actions as a sweeper keeper. Very good at like passing and whatnot. So he does bring value to the team. I don't know if this is something they have to fight through in terms of he's in a bit of a funk. Maybe he just needs to get out of it, or they'll need to adjust their defense to make sure that they're not giving up high quality chances. And maybe he's just kind of got the short end of the stick to a certain extent.
Yeah. And that's probably what's contributed to these 1 goal separation outcomes, whether they've won or lost, is just that ball getting past Sanchez. The kind of player that I had on my watch list for this was Mitch Tainter. First off, we got to make the complaint. He's a Connecticut native. So, I mean, already there's that problem.
How dare he?
I mean, between a Connecticut native and a Hartford former keeper, I mean, this is just, how are we need to score all the goals against them. But he was actually a Rose Academy player, drafted by Toronto FC. And then he went back and forth. His loan stint between San Antonio and Sacramento was
some weird love affair there.
Yeah, it's like, hey, we don't want him. We don't want him. Well, we'll take him. Well, no, we want him back. It was very weird. But Tainter has very much secured his position with San Antonio since 2022, where he went on to become the defender of the year. That was the season San Antonio, some people have said, has been one of the best seasons of all time in the USL Championship. The 6'2 defender, just known for his leadership on the field. He's most often the team captain, and his defensive prowess includes winning his aerial duels. He's one of the best in the league right now. His interceptions, like I mentioned a second ago, the reason San Antonio is so far up the table on that is because of Tainter himself. His blocking is incredibly effective. And then when you're 6'2", you've got a lot of that same aerial threat presence that you would have defensively. He's been able to contribute to goals and assists throughout his career with San Antonio. And, I always think captains are really well placed when they're on the defensive side of things, whether that's the goalkeeper or the in the back line, because they're seeing more of the game from behind. So they're able to kind of coordinate and communicate that. And I think that's made him a very most important piece inside San Antonio's composition. There was an interesting stat I saw in one of the games I watched. Tanner's been out for a couple of matches this season, and they've all been some of the worst performances that San Antonio has experienced. And in the games that Mitch Tainter has played, so he's played in 118. He's been out for 21 games total in San Antonio's career, whether it's due to injuries or just not in the game day selection. The points per game when Tanner's on the pitch for San Antonio is 1.82 compared to 1.43 when he's off. The goal differential when Tanner is on the field is plus 66. When he's not on the pitch, it's just zero. It's flat. So he's contributed to the offense and to the team being able to score an additional 66 goals with his presence in there. But the clean sheets is where this really thrives. They improve by 34.7% when he is on the pitch. So very much a valued contributor to the San Antonio season. And I think he's going to be an incredible force to be reckoned with. And now that he's partnered with the 6'5" giraffe in Alex Crognell from Birmingham, dude, that dude is so tall. He's Hugo Bacharach levels of tall. And everyone now has kind of seen him as he's traveled with the team and interact with fans. That's going to be a very tall order for whatever attacking line we have for Rhode Island FC on the night.
Yeah. And then just quickly, Alex Grieve here, not going to go through all the details of him too much, but the New Zealander has some experience abroad playing in the Scottish Premiership. So I think he's one to watch out for. In classic New England fashion, though, I would imagine he'll get subbed off and Juan Agudelo would be the one to score against us.
Of course.
That's just how it would play out,
Grieve was actually on our list early on in Rhode Island FC scouting when Khano went out in the 2024 season. When he went out to Ireland, he was with Bohemians at the time, and we were like, "Oh, are you a Bohemians guy? This could be one of the players." Full credit to San Antonio finding him, cutting that contract short, and saying, "Nope, he's going to be our guy now." And he scored 2 goals already this season. He's a very aggressive player. Got a little bit more technical. And he's strong enough to where he'll hold the ball up and be able to make the moves necessary to kind of advance the attack. I don't think that he is quite the player that can take it on his own and do something with. I think he needs a supporting cast, but when you've got Jorge Hernandez behind you, that's all you need, right? That's all there is to ask for from it. Let's talk about this, really quick because we're running out of time. I want to ask you, are you of the opinion that this is a must win, not because of anything other than just the optics, because in front of the fans, we have to show, regardless of all the other circumstances working against it, San Antonio's like begrudging need to dethrone teams when they have their home openers in their new stadiums. But is this a game that if things don't go the right way for RIFC optics wise, the injuries accumulating, is this a bad thing? Like, I don't want to set us up for failure here, but like, I know that there's a lot of expectations. Like I asked Coach, and here's the best way to sum it up. I asked Coach if the momentum from this 4-1 victory they had over the weekend was the fuel they needed to like get ready for both of these games coming up at Centreville Bank Stadium. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "There is nothing we need other than the fact that we know the responsibility that we have in this first game at Centreville Bank Stadium. We have all of the momentum. We have all of the reasons. We are ready to go." Like, this team is going to be just completely jacked and ready to fight. But at the same time, optics wise, how important is it we get this first win?
I think it is important, but at the same time, I would argue that the reality is what we need here is entertainment value, and whether or not that sees us on, as the victor, as long as RIFC can score and it is a exciting game. It's not one of those, last season early 0-0 draws. I think people will come away and say, "Oh, that was fun. It was a good experience and everything." And it's very funny because there's a lot more that's going into this, right? This is the first time the stadium is going to be open to immediate max capacity. So you're going to have, like, how long is the line going to be to buy food? How long is it going to take? Like, there's all these weird factors that are going to come into play where different people are going to be looking at different, like,
you thought the Dells line was long at Bern? You have no idea what's in store for you. You're not ready for this.
In that regards, because most of the soccer sickos are already here, and we've already committed to this. They're here along with us right now listening. They know the injuries. They're going to put an asterisk next to this. The other people who are just going to show up because this is a fun thing to do. We've got a brand new shiny stadium and it's something to take the kids to on Saturday. They just need entertainment, right? Obviously, we don't want to get blown out of the water. As long as a competitive game is shown and it's a close match, if we don't come out the victor, I think we can get a bit of a leeway where there's still, this is the first of many home matches.
Sure. I mean, I think back to the home opener at Bern. It was a 1-1 game, but because of the direction, I think this is the important part. If we can get away with this with a draw, I want to win. And I want to be very clear with everyone listening. I want to win. I want to beat San Antonio. But if the best we can do is a draw with these injuries, especially with now JJ out, as long as the draw is a comeback draw and not an equalized against draw, that can still feel like a victory.
Or a scoring draw with a bit of back and forth.
Yeah, like a 2-2.
Those are fun.
Yeah, like a 2-2. But we have to score the last goal of the game. And that's where we'll still make this team feel like they're winners. It'll still have everyone holding their head high. And we can go through it from there. So let's kind of wind this down, and let's talk about what does RIFC need to do to win this game outright.
I would have said
score first.
It's just so hard, like looking at that injury list and like trying to adjust like
this injury list with the 19 players on it. Yeah.
And we've seen what works for this team is scoring first, preferably in the first half. Can we do that in the busted, broken shape that we are? Maybe, but I think in this regard, what we've seen from where we've done well, with the exclusion of Oakland, that was different. Oakland's maybe just bad. But the cup competitions, well, both of those games had traveling fan support. And we've heard that Khano and many of the other players, they feed off that adrenaline. So in this regard, I think we need our 12th man to kind of, fuel the spirit bomb energy power that RIFC need.
Yeah, the 12th man can't be injured on this game.
Yeah, that no way can they be injured. I think Defiance 1636, like I don't want to like put pressure on us as fans.
No, I will. I'll do it right now. Defiance 1636. I know you're all listening. This one's on you. You're going to have to carry this team on your wings right now because they're a broken and battered group. They're going to need you more than they've ever needed you. They're going to need you more than Nkolo Spigs, because this has so much table stake for them personally as a matter of pride to not let a team come in and stomp all over this beautiful thing that's been created. They're going to need you to show up. And I know you guys are all capable of it. I'm just telling you right now, this is on you. You got to, and I've heard some of the plans. You've got to come up big. You have to show up for the day. Every single one of you on your feet on all three of those sections. I know that only one of them is locked so that they can't sit down. You got to get the other two groups, like it's vertical for 90 minutes. Like if the players need it, that's what they're going to need. That's what they're going to need from all of us on the day.
Yeah, I think for us to win this, I think if we did, it'd be silly to say, but it'd be one in the stands in a certain fashion.
No, I agree 100%. I would say tactically, if I had to think about this in some sort of way,
bunker and counter.
It's funny you say that because here's the thing. Like I look at it as we saw how successful the back four was in absorbing and giving the midfield a little bit more time. Like the play didn't the play feel a little slower in Westchester? Like they took their time. They waited for the opposition to make their mistakes, and then they really punished them for it.
Yes and no. I think when they finally found their point of attack, it felt very quick.
Well, that was the fast breaks. The fast breaks. I'm not talking the fast breaks. I'm talking the build up ones where they were trying to get through
like the poke and prod, the kind of find an opening, and then once you see a point of attack, try and do a quick 1-2, lob it over the top, have some runner head out into the wings.
They looked a lot more clinical in their passing. To stretch the field. I mean, Westchester was isolated to less than 400 passes, which usually a good team needs to get at least 400 attempts to pass the ball, right? And so I think that they just look really good. The fast break's always been their main trick, but I really think that was kind of the other thing. Here's the thing: this back line is going to be tested beyond all belief, right? Not only was San Antonio scoring well, but now we know how unstable, and we can't even predict what we'll see on the day. We don't know if it'll be a back three, a back five, a back four. I think that when you combine that with San Antonio's ability to claw back multi-goal comebacks and to win out the day, I think this is going to be a game of shots. I think this is going to be a game of who makes the first mistake. Unfortunately, this injury to JJ came so late in the practice week that like I don't know how much more you can prepare, because they were going all week, right? It's Thursday night. They were going all week through, and now they don't have JJ. They have one last game to prep, or one last practice day to try Jose Quazera or Joe Burrito or whatever they're going to do. That's a lot of ask. So all I can say is this: I think that RFC has to punch first, bunker, and absorb as much of the attack. If San Antonio gets caught out, that's where they can punish them the most. And as long as they have 11 men on the field, we already saw what they did against Detroit City. Detroit City had very much the same style, same attack, same design. And if we had that 11th man, I feel like we could have scored some goals. We could have seen some opportunities come back. It just didn't go our way. My only concern is not just the injuries, but then with only 3 men on the depth piece right now, the Open Cup, 3 days later, I don't know how we get through both this game and the next game completely intact. I'm a little concerned. So right now, I think Khano's got to decide which game does he want to really win, and which game will he maybe have to phone it in, because I just don't know how you do both.
I mean, it sounds like Porter's already phoned it in.
I don't just mean like the result. I mean, then you're talking like potentially injuring your remaining players because they have to play all of these additional. You know what I mean? Like it gets really complex.
I think that becomes almost more of a tactic of the game where you tell everyone to kind of conserve your energy, and maybe you try and play a slower game. You try and be a bit more reserved, look to take your opportunities when you get them, but don't overexert yourself.
That's why I wouldn't be surprised if we are a bunker. Khano would never bunker unless I just don't see Khano as a bunkering type of player.
Bunker at the bank.
But I do see him maybe changing the style of like slow it down, to your point. Wait for the right counter. Don't try to force it with the same quantity, compliments that we've been making earlier in the recording. So score predictions, I've got 2-2. I think now with these injuries and a confident SAFC that I just don't see us winning. But if we do win, I will happily eat my crow, and you can all ridicule me online for not believing in this team after I just told Defiance to show up and believe in this team. So
I mean, I want to say 1-1 for the memes where we score an own goal in the 90th minute. But I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna say a 1-0 win. Just a scrappy game, some excitement, some chances, but maybe a late winner, 82nd minute or something.
I mean, someone's saying we might as well just put Koke at striker when we're down that much.
Just for one game.
I don't know. I have no words. Producer Torrin thinks it will also be a 2-2, and Andrew Hillside, our quant, who in just a short few games will finally have enough statistical data to start making his projections for the rest of the season, believes that we will win 2-1. And he went full Nostradamus. He predicted it'll be off of San Antonio scoring first off a cheap set piece, and then in the dying minutes of the first half, and then we'll come back aggressive in the second half. So he's basically re-emulating what happened against Detroit, but this time around we score 2 goals in the second half. I've seen crazier things. It's been a wild ride. Harry Austin, one of our partners in crime with the San Antonio FC fancast, he's got 1-0 for the good guys. I won't finish the rest of the quote because I can't read anymore, but it's
weird. I immediately lost the ability to read after this one word here.
So let's wrap things up here with the kind of getting you ready for the Know Before You Go. We do have an official Know Before You Go for the Know Before You Go, an interview with Paul Byrne. We needed some things to be released because we pre-recorded the content last week, and they were trying to get their final stuff across the finish line. So they asked us not to release it until those things were concluded and could be officially made known to the public. So weirdly, I'm going to release a double podcast tomorrow. So you're going to hear this one, or you listen to Paul Byrne first. So you're going to have a lot of content if you want. It's just some additional context and some of the history of what's been going on behind the scenes to get Centreville Bank Stadium ready. Feel free, if you can't get to it and you've been up to date on the materials that have been sent out by the club, that should get you ready for the game. But if you want to enjoy that as well, no love lost either side of that. Just please remember that the action does kick off on Saturday, May the 4th. May the 4th? No, not May the 4th. May the 3rd. I was like, why did that not sound familiar? May the 3rd at 4 p.m. people are going to show up on Sunday. Like, what is this women's rugby game I'm at? So yeah, Saturday, May 3rd at 4 p.m. at Centreville Bank Stadium. But guys, get there early. I cannot stress this enough. If there's one thing that Paul continuously told me in the interview, get there early. And I said, how early? And he's like, well, the parking lot's open at 1. Stadium opens at 2. So get there early. It could take you an hour just to get into the parking lot.
So remember in, what was it, 2001 when we had to wait in line for 24 hours to buy a PlayStation 2 in front of a Best Buy? You know, just throwing that out there.
Can you imagine WPRI just like finding the guy in his car sitting in front of a Laz parking lot? Like, what are you doing here, sir? Just waiting for my chance to watch Glory. But yeah, we're going to get there early. I'm planning on being at the same at like 11 a.m. and then just finding my way through it. Remember that there are different amounts of walking time depending on the lot you're going to be in. So it's a minimum of like, I think 3 minutes in the T lots, 13 minutes in the M lots.
You've been working on your fitness in the off season and you're ready to go because coach might need to grab 2 fans off the side to kind of throw on the bench there.
Jason, is this your chance to shine?
I think I started too late. Like
he did say to us, remember in the off season, like you told him you'd be ready. And he's like, I'll call on you when the time is right. Coach Khano has been expecting you.
I can give him a good like 10 minutes. If he needs sub me on in the 80th minute, I got this.
I don't think you got even a good 10 minutes in you, buddy. But back
like
to
7.
Back to it. Also remember the march to the match does start at the M7 lot with Defiance going through City Hall, the front office, the main street front office, and then heading down Division Street into Taft Street for the march. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you're over by the tailgating lot for M7. And then finally, just want to talk about the weather conditions because they're going to constantly change. If you wait 12 minutes in Ryland, the weather is going to be different. When we put the notes down today, there was projected thunderstorms. I'm sure it's already changed again since, with the rain trying to kind of clear out a little bit earlier. And then around 5 p.m., it's looking to be more favorable skies, somewhere around 71 to 75 degrees. Just continue to check your weather app up until the morning when you leave and be prepared for rain.
It changes, right? So right now it'll rain before and after the match, but it won't rain during the match.
The soccer gods have decided.
But
bring weather gear in the car, wait 12 minutes, and then just be prepared either way. It's going to be a beautiful game no matter what, because it is the beautiful game. And as a reminder, if you can't catch the match because you didn't get a ticket when we told you to a million different times, you can watch the game on my RITV, ESPN Plus, TUDN. Now, TUDN's been expanded to cover this game, as well as you can tune into the local broadcast for the play-by-play on 790 The Score with Tom and Nick. And then also, if you just want to go to the Guild, they're going to have a watch party there, as well as the many local restaurants. We talked to a lot of them a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of them are banking on some fan experiences either before the game, during the game, or after the game. So I can't wait to meet everyone. I love seeing everyone. It's going to be such a great time. Please come up and harass Jason and I as much as you want. And telling you that we ruined your weekend by talking about JJ. And I just can't wait to see everyone. It's going to be so exciting to see. I think it's going to be like 12,000 now. That's what they were saying. The standing room tickets have expanded to. Maybe a little less than that, but like it's definitely over the 10,500 that are the seat specific opportunities for people to join. So I'm super excited.
We're finally here. We made it through the road trip.
It's been a long road, man. It's been a long road. You ready for this?
And it's just starting. We're not even that far into the season.
The season officially starts now, everyone.
All right, everyone. Make sure to check out our friends over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news. And you can find that at blazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RIFC Podcast, Instagram at Raising Anchor, and we've got a website, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchor's up, everybody. See you on Saturday.
Anchor's up.